Hello, good evening and welcome to our PCS Facebook Live. I'm Fran Heathcote, President of PCS, and joining us tonight will be Mark Serwotka, our General Secretary, and our interpreter, Richard, who will make sure that the event is as accessible as possible. We wanted to meet you tonight straight after the NEC had met, so to give you an update from what the NEC has discussed and decided this afternoon, to talk to you about the importance of winning the reballot and getting the vote out, but also to give you a general update in terms of the campaign. If you have questions or comments, please send them to the admins in the usual way, and we will make sure that we get through as many of those as possible. They'll be fed through to me, and in the time we've got, we'll make sure that we have plenty of time to hear from Mark, and then time for you to send any messages that you want to, and I'll cover as many of those as I can. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over now to Mark Serwotka, our General Secretary, and Mark's going to give you a bit of an update in terms of everything that's going on. So over to you, Mark.
Well, thanks very much, Fran, and good evening to you and to Richard, our fabulous interpreter, and a big thanks to everyone who's joining us on the various platforms. As you said, Fran, the core reason for calling tonight's meeting was obviously to ensure that people understood the critical nature of the reballot that has just started, to give people a chance to answer any questions, and to make sure everybody really understands that the result in that reballot ultimately could determine whether we win enough out of this dispute or not. But as you said in your introduction, the NEC has also met today and taken key decisions on moving the campaign forward, which I also wanted to update people on. So the way I thought I would do that is to give people a quick update of where we've been since the 15th of March and the fantastic day of strike action we've had. An update on what targeted action has been taking place and is due to take place over the next few weeks. Then the NEC decision today to call a further all-out strike at the end of April, and how all of this linked to making sure we win the reballot is the key to getting the government to now start the talks that they promised we're going to get and to put money on the table. And to that end, it is probably worth everybody knowing that as we're meeting here, our colleagues in the National Education Union are also at exactly this time having a mass meeting of their own activists in order to update where they are. And what's really interesting about what the National Education Union are doing is, like our colleagues in health, the pressure that has been built has meant that the government has had talks with them and has made them an improved offer on what they had before. And tonight they're announcing to their own members what they're going to do about that offer and how they're going to take that forward. Obviously, also, if for those who haven't been updated of developments, our colleagues in the health unions have also received an improved offer from the government, and they are now also balloting their members Most unions recommending they accept the improved offer. Unite the Union is not making a recommendation in that ballot. And so what people can see from that is the action we've all been taking together is building pressure. Some sectors have now had improved offers. Some are balloting on them. Some, like the firefighters, have accepted an improved pay offer. But we are still in the position that whilst we're told the government has now agreed to open negotiations with PCS to resolve the dispute, we have yet to receive the date for that set of talks, let alone understand what the government is going to bring to the table. So the start point really for our meeting tonight is that it is the action that we've taken so far, the pressure that we've built, has got us to the stage where the government has accepted they must have to have talks with us. That's not happened before. Never before in a national dispute over pay has the action we've taken forced the government to accept that they must reopen discussions with us. They have now accepted that. But what they haven't done is put a date in the diary and agreed the agenda, let alone told us how much, if any, extra money is going to be made available, both for 2022's pay and indeed for pay moving forward in 2023. To that end, whilst we can be pleased that the action we've taken clearly looks like it's getting us around the negotiating table, what tonight's meeting is about is unless and until we get a date, we get an improved offer, like other unions have received, that we believe is one that we can consult members on, we have to keep increasing the pressure on the Cabinet Office and all our employers and the government to force them to get on with it. And that's why I want to stress that from our point of view, pressure's building, but until they do the right thing, we must continue to increase that pressure. And that's why I am going to disclose tonight the further action that the NEC has agreed to call, whilst also make it clear the critical nature of our reballot in order to ensure that we get a successful outcome in the dispute. But I always think that it's important in meetings like this that we remember what we've done so far. And for many members of the union who haven't taken part in the targeted action, but have taken part in the all members action, I think it is always worth reminding ourselves what PCS colleagues have been doing since December last year to build the pressure. Because it is a case that we've had PCS members on strike since December, taking sustained targeted action, funded by the levy that everybody's paying into, that has meant the pressure is building on the government. Last year, we all remember that action that started in the Rural Payments Agency, in the Department for Transport, National Highways and the Border Force over Christmas, and the DVSA driving examiners, has continued right throughout 2023. And in the last few weeks and months, we've had strike action in the Department of Work and Pensions, in Bolton, in Stockport, in Toxteth. We've had action in the Department for Transport, in the DVLA, in numerous occasions, as well as the Driving Standards Agency. We've had strike action in the British Museum, strike action in DEFRA, in the Animal Plant Health Agency. We've had strike action in the Home Office, in the Border Force, both at ports, airports, and at the ports in France. Strike action again in the DVLA in recent weeks. Again, we've got members out now in the DVLA and the Driving Standards Agency. We've had action in the Land Registry. We've got ongoing action also in Ofsted and ongoing action of our colleagues in the driving examiners. Also, last week, we had the first strike action in the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. And the NEC has today agreed a further escalation of our targeted action strategy in order to put further pressure on the government. And what we've announced tonight is that throughout April, there will be a significant escalation of that targeted action. So there will be further strike action called in National Highways, in the Cabinet Office, action in the Home Office passport offices, where every passport office in the UK will be called out on strike between the 3rd of April and the 5th of May. We will have extended strike action in the British Library, further action in the Animal Plant Health Agency, action in the British Museum, action in the Home Office in Northern Ireland, in the potentially further notifying action as well we've done today in our members in Ofgem. And we are further considering strike action also in a number of other government departments if that escalation doesn't put pressure on the government. In other words, what we wanted to get across tonight is we have seen an unprecedented amount of strike action so far, but in April, that's going to be significantly increased. And that is reflected in the media coverage that the union's been having, where we've been dominating the media over the course of the last 10 days, just on the basis of the strike action in the passport offices alone, that is likely to cause significant disruption. Again, Fran, I'm happy to confirm that the action called in the passport offices, as we've seen elsewhere in the union, has seen a massive increase in new joiners to PCS. The density of the union is dramatically increased. Now, all of that comes at a time where we've also had two national strikes, one on the 1st of February and then an even bigger one on the 15th of March, where 130,000 PCS members took strike action along with 7 other unions, and again, it got massive coverage. Now, I make that point because what I really wanted to get across is that the ballot we had last year and the action we've taken has seen more sustained strike action in the civil service than we have seen for decades. That, supported by the magnificent strikes on the 1st of February and the 15th of March, has had the effect of getting the government to concede that there now must be negotiations. Now, the problem with the talks with the Cabinet Office at the moment is it seems to be that the government wants to get the health and education talks out of the way before they open up the talks with us. We believe it's important that the talks with us start as quickly as possible, which is why we've announced a big escalation in the targeted action today. But further than that, we have also announced today that if we have not had acceptable proposals tabled before the end of April, that we are calling a further all-out strike of all members who have carried the ballot mandate on Friday, the 28th of April, which is the Friday before the bank holiday weekend, that is designed not only to tell the government that after unprecedented levels of targeted action in April, they will see a further all-out strike at the end of the month linked to a bank holiday that is going to have significant disruption in a number of government departments where staffing will be reduced going into a bank holiday, but where the demands on the services will be high. And that represents a message to the government today that they need to get around the negotiating table now, put money on the table, and if they don't, they will see more targeted strikes in April than ever before, and a further all-member action at the end of April that may well be taken with other unions, depending on the outcome of, for example, the National Education Union meeting that's taking place at the same time as us. Now, the reason we've announced all that tonight is to make it clear to members, but also to make it clear to the government and employers that we're not going away. It's not acceptable that other areas have had better offers, and we are yet to get around to the table. And it's no good telling us there will be talks if those talks aren't arranged. This is sending a clear signal. The action is escalating, and the government need to get around the negotiating table quickly. If the threat of this action or the start of this action in April does get the government around the negotiating table, the NEC has agreed today that it will call an immediate meeting to review where we are in talks, and we will then want to tell all members and activists about any progress that is being made. So a very straightforward message. The action's going to get us talks. We need to put more pressure on them. We want everyone to support their colleagues who will be striking throughout April, to visit picket lines, to ensure you recruit other members to the union, explain to them why the levy is funding other colleagues to take action on everyone's behalf. And crucially, if that doesn't get the talks we want the 28th of April to be even bigger and more vibrant than the strikes we've already had on the 1st of February and the 15th of March. And what I wanted to do, therefore, is to explain now how that programme of action is inextricably linked to the need for us to ensure that the reballot that the law has required us to hold is not just won, but is won in every area that we won last time, hopefully with bigger votes, but is also won in areas where we didn't manage to get over the threshold. Because as people will have picked up from my introduction, we know the government is being forced to concede talks. But there could be something we could read into the delay, which is whilst it might be wanting to sort other sectors out and then deal with us, it may also be linked to their belief that given our ballot mandate runs out at the beginning of May, if they drag it out, they may hope that we lose the ability to take further action, and therefore there is no pressure on them to give us a better offer. That is why it is impossible to overstate the importance that the reballot that started on the 20th of March, we must win. We must win because the government need to know the pressure will stay on them. And we must win because it is the only means by which we can extend the action for another 6 months if no progress is made in the talks. And the NEC believes the combination of a big escalation in targeted action, the threat of a further strike on the 28th of April by all of us, and the belief that we can win the ballot in even bigger numbers will be the, if you like, the formula that gets the government around the negotiating table. So what I wanted to swiftly turn to now is what we're asking people all to do to ensure that this ballot that is taking place is a ballot that we make sure that we can win. And that is important, I think, that we stress we can't be complacent because we've already won once. Everyone else who's reballoted in other unions has managed to do even better in the second ballot, and we want to join them. But it is critical that we get the message out to everyone that if we don't get over the 50% turnout, then our campaign will come to an end. And if that happens, everything we've done up to now potentially is not going to get us the gains from the employer that we would want. So my final message is just some detail on what it is that we're asking people to do over the course of the next few days and weeks. The first one is to say that the ballot papers are now out. They were posted out on the 20th of March. Our key message is to post your ballot pack straight away. It is to tell us that you have posted back your ballot paper so that we can use our own data to know who has voted and where we need to target our efforts to chase people up to remind them to vote. We're asking you all to speak to your friends at work, to tell them that you voted and to remind them to vote. And we're asking people to get active in the union, to build upon the brilliant campaign we've run over the last 6 months, because we believe, like other unions have done, that we can get the government to make us improved offers. In terms of the practicalities, everybody should have already had a ballot paper by now. But if you haven't, from today, people can now request a replacement ballot paper. If no ballot paper has been received, members can now log into their PCS digital account and request a replacement ballot paper, or you can speak to your reps so that your reps can chase up getting a new ballot paper issued. All members have until the 19th of April to request a replacement ballot paper if they haven't had one. If you have, to repeat the point, send it back now and tell us that you voted. New members can join the union, and anyone who joins the union up to the 16th of April will still be able to vote in this ballot, and we're urging people to get more people to join the union. As of today, our membership was 194,000. In areas like the Home Office, we have seen an increase in one group alone from 13,000 members to 18,000, one of the highest levels of membership we've ever achieved. But we still want more people to join us. Everyone's ballot paper has to be received by the scrutineers by the 9th of May. And therefore, the sooner people send back their ballot paper, the better. We're asking everyone to use PCS's digital tools to make sure you tell us that you voted. And over the next few days and weeks, we will be having text messages, call hub to ensure that we contact members, urging them to vote. We're asking as many people who are already not active in the union to consider getting active. And we're asking everyone on this call tonight to make sure your members understand what action has been taking place. And we'll be issuing updated bulletins to highlight where targeted action has taken place and what effect it has had. Every branch in the union will be allocated a full-time officer organizer to help offer advice and support to win the ballot over the course of the next few weeks. And we're organising further training, both on our call hub and organising hub, and we'll be holding further strike schools. So Fran, my finishing message really is this. We have done so much already. Members have been amazing. The picket lines have been huge. Younger members than ever before joining us, more people getting active in the union. Everywhere we've had targeted action, that action has had an effect. And it is why, combined with our all-member strikes, the government has been forced to concede that they are going to talk to us. That would not have happened if it wasn't for the campaign that we've won. We can see colleagues in other unions beginning to make some progress Now we need to make sure that we get the same progress. And your NEC is absolutely confident that that will happen. It will happen if the strikes continue to be well supported, and it will definitely happen if we win this reballot. The union is getting stronger and stronger, and management know it. So my final message is, if we've done all of this to build the union, we're doing that because we want to win. We want to win you more pay, pensions justice, stopping the job cuts and the cuts to the compensation scheme, and having a job security agreement. That is why finally, Fran, I want to just announce to people tonight that people will know that alongside our campaign, we took legal action against the government in order to get our pensions contribution overpayments back. And the judge in the High Court found for the government and not for the unions. But the NEC received a report today that our legal advisors believe we've got a very strong grounds for appeal, and we are currently considering with other unions submitting an appeal against that legal decision to continue the legal fight alongside our industrial fight. So if we stick together, we carry on delivering, we can win. And to do that, we want you to support the targeted action all out on the 28th of April and make sure we win the ballot thresholds. In the meantime, if the government finally get around the negotiating table, our promise to you is not only to consider any offer, but to reconvene meetings like this to update everybody on any progress made. Thanks very much.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks so much, Mark. Thanks for that update. Okay, let's start with some solidarity shout-outs then. Solidarity from the Office for National Statistics from PCS members in Northern Ireland. Solidarity from DWP West Wales branch. Let's smash the ballot threshold. Remember, you haven't voted until you've posted it. Solidarity from DWP Durham County branch, from DWP Tees Valley branch. Solidarity from DWP Cornwall. Solidarity from MOJ Associated Offices branch, and solidarity to all members taking action from PCS Glasgow HMRC branch. Solidarity from all HMPO branches in the Home Office. Let's smash the reballot. Solidarity to all workers who are taking strike action and those in the reballot to get your ballot forms in, and that's in Preston Central branch. And then once again, solidarity from the Office of National Statistics. So lots more solidarity messages coming in, but we'll do them a batch at a time. Let's move to the questions. There are a few. Some of them I think have probably been covered since you posted them by Mark's contribution. So where that's the case, I'll obviously just remind you of the answers. So in the case of James Stribley, when's the next action? As Mark has just covered off, the next all-member action with everybody covered by the ballot taking action together will be the 28th of April. Okay, so there's a couple of questions I'll put together, Mark. Katie Elizabeth asks, is there an anticipated date for the strike levy to end? And Kathy Darkin asks, is there any proposed long-term targeted action in the HMRC group? So I don't know if you want to start with those two.
I will start with those, Fran. And can I also just confirm now something that we can put in the public domain now, but we couldn't, which is just to highlight to people that I said the NEU are meeting as we speak. And we now know that the National Education Union are balloting their members recommending they reject the government's improved offer to teachers. That ballot will take place over the course of the next week, and that they're very confident that their members will vote to reject. To give people an idea of what's going on, firefighters' pay offer accepted a 7% backdated pay offer for 2022 and 5% for 2023. Health unions are balloting with a recommendation from most of them to accept a pay offer that was essentially 6% for 2022, although some of that non-consolidated, 5% moving forward. And we now know that the teachers' offer was essentially a £1,000 one-off payment for 2022 and 4.5% for 2023, which they're recommending rejection. I mention all that, Fran, because I think it's important that people understand what is happening elsewhere in terms of improved offers and what people's attitudes been. To Katie and Kathy's question, for Kathy, I can confirm that our reps in HMRC are currently considering targeted action options in HMRC. We've asked them to do that. And the way this works is that the NEC asks the elected leaders in each group to consider targeted action options and put forward submissions. So we are wanting those from HMRC, and they are currently under consideration. And we think HMRC can play an invaluable role moving forward in terms of targeted action. And on Katie's question, the levy currently was due to end when the mandate ended, which is the beginning of May. We are reballoting, and one of the things made clear in the reballot is if members do vote again for further industrial action, it is our intention to keep that levy going for the period of the dispute. And just to stress, the end of this obviously is always due when the dispute ends, and we're not going to ask any money from people when the dispute has ended, but it is the means by which we're able to fund, for example, the action that I announced earlier on. And so if the dispute ends, then the current rate of the levy will end as well. So that's the answer to that.
Okay, thank you. Maureen Sweeney asks, some of my colleagues have not received the ballot papers yet and are having an issue trying to order a new ballot paper. Maureen, that might just be an issue of timing, because I think, as Mark made clear in his presentation, the earliest date you could order a replacement was today. So if they've been trying to order one prior to that, that may be why they've been having a bit of an issue. But as Mark's just made clear, from today, anybody who hasn't received a ballot paper is able to order a replacement. Stuart Vogel and Susan Navrick ask similar questions. Stuart's is, when you meet in the government, and Susan's, have the government even agreed to a meeting? So I know you covered this, Mark, but I don't know if there's anything you want to just say on those specifics.
Yes. So we're meeting, all unions in the civil service are meeting the Cabinet Office in the way that we do every year, looking at the pay remit. So that's taking place. But what the Cabinet Office has accepted is that our dispute can only be resolved in individual talks with PCS, and separately they will have talks with Prospect, who are also now in dispute. I can confirm that the Cabinet Office have told us there will be talks, but those talks have to be explicitly approved by number 10 in order for them to happen. And so they have not happened yet. We're told they are going to happen. And obviously, one of our frustrations is everybody else has had those talks. We want to get on with ours. So, the NEC received a report today. We believe those talks will happen. But until they happen, it's important that we keep the pressure on, which is why we've announced a big escalation of action in April. And as soon as we're notified of those talks, Fran, we will make sure everybody knows about them and also knows about what the outcome of that is.
That's great. Thank you. Claire Fleming asks, have Scottish Government received a revised pay offer yet?
Yes. So just to make it clear that people will be aware that whilst all the issues in dispute are with the UK Westminster Government in terms of pensions, compensation scheme and pay for Westminster departments, there are clearly pay issues with the Scottish and Welsh devolved sectors who are in control of their own pay. I can announce that we've received an offer in the Scottish Parliament corporate body that is a pretty successful offer that has achieved a £15 an hour minimum wage, for example, and pay rises between 10 and 29% over 2 years. And the NEC has authorised a ballot in that area of those members. In Scottish Government and the Scottish devolved sector, we believe that we know an offer has just been received, and there will be a meeting of our Scottish sector reps organised very shortly to consult with those reps on that offer. And then following that, members. And so that's where we are with that. And Scottish devolved members will get to hear about that pretty soon. And we'll be consulting your reps in a matter of days.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, another batch of solidarity shout-outs then. So solidarity to all the workers who are taking strike action and those in the reballot to get your forms in. And that's from Jackie Green, who's she's the Vice President of PCS, but she's also the Group President of the MOJ Group. Solidarity from the IOPC PCS branch, please vote yes. Solidarity from Long Benton and with all colleagues currently reballoting in PCS, and that's from HMRC Benton Park View branch. Solidarity to all HMPO branches in the Home Office. Let's smash this reballot. That's from Karen Alderson. From the DFT group and to all on strike, including our driving examiners in Scotland and the Northern region, who we know are taking targeted action this week. That's from your group president, Paul Williams. And solidarity from PCS HMRC Merseyside, and that's from Tracy Hilton. So thank you for all of those. Lucy Lou makes a really good point. She said we need a Facebook profile badge for our payday walkout, and I'm sure that's something we can have a look at, Lucy Lou, and I'm sure there's something we can have in hand. Sue Smith says great to do this immediately before the bank holiday, which is obviously going to have some impact. And Andrew Hodge says 28th of April is also International Workers' Memorial Day and should be remembered by all workers. Well, what a good way to remember that day then. And obviously that is a consideration, isn't it, in terms of a day that's going to have a lot of impact. Okay, Mark, question for you. Phil Garn says, if we are asked to cover Passport Office operational roles, I understand we can then strike, but do we get strike pay for that day or however many days, even though our substantive jobs haven't been called out? That might not be something that is that Mark will be able to answer on the spot, because it's obviously quite specific to the role that you're employed in, Phil. But Mark, I don't know if there's anything you want to say on that.
Well, two things. So obviously, if Phil gives us his contact details, we will get in touch with him. But if members are called out on strike as part of the targeted action, they will get strike pay for the duration of the time they're out on strike. So the question there is obviously, and as is implied by Phil's question, if the understanding is we can call people out the passport offices who are moved, then yes, they will definitely be getting strike pay. Can I also say that as a result of our HMRC ballot being successful in their reballot, and HMRC delivered a fantastic vote, we are conscious that members in surge teams who are technically employed by HMRC are also being asked to cover where strikes are taking place. And we are now actively working with the HMRC group to be in a position to identify and call out on strike as part of our targeted action members in surge teams to stop them being used to cover strike action, both of which is a further escalation of our dispute, which is a positive thing as we've won the HMRC ballot. So I hope that answers the question, but would ask Phil to give us his details so one of our reps, Karen or Mike Jones possibly, or James, can get in touch to be very specific on the advice. But the principle is, Fran, if people are out on targeted action, we pay them out of people's levy.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, Jeremy Watrett says, any news on what's happening in HMRC regarding the changes to the percentages required for cover? This seems to me to be a red rag to a bull. And obviously, Jeremy, that's quite HMRC specific. And I'm pretty sure the group will be issuing advice on that. I don't know if there's anything you want to say there, Mark, but it's obviously something that's specific to the HMRC group. If you get in touch with your rep or your group office, then clearly they'll be able to pick that up more specifically. Okay, another load of solidarity shout outs from Grampian and Tayside branch of Scottish Government. Well done, PCS, and to those that have supported all the action. That's from Bo Allen. Solidarity from DWP Birmingham North, from Health and Safety Executive and ONR National Branch Warrington Office. Stand Together. That's from Angela Ritpath in Pennington. And solidarity from Registers of Scotland branch. Together We're Stronger, and that's from John Jameson. Okay. There's some questions here, not all with names, so I'm just going to read them out, and some we may not have an answer to. So are reps able to order a replacement ballot paper on behalf of our members? Probably not. I would think that that's something that members have to do, but certainly reps can help them with that. We plan on doing anything to entice members onto PCS Digital. The prize draw last time was a really good idea. Mark, I don't know if there's anything you want to comment there, that we can certainly look at some incentives, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, and just on the query that came in, if no ballot paper is received, members can log into PCS Digital and they can request one. Or if members speak to their rep, the rep are able to generate an automatic email so that the member can order a new one. So that's the way it's done, because obviously the law governs, there's an individual relationship between the member and the ballot. But if you speak to your rep, if you can't get into PCS Digital, for example, they can get an automatic email and you can order one from there. Is that one? Obviously, on the second point, we're happy to look at any and all ways of incentivizing people to vote. But what I hope people can get across from this, the single biggest incentive for everyone is having built more pressure than we have ever managed before. That would dissipate if we don't get over the line. And that, I think, has got to be the biggest incentive of all. If the government see this action in April and then a renewed mandate, then we are very strong in our belief that that puts such a lot of pressure on them. It should get the talks that we want if they haven't happened by then. So, but any other ideas people want to send us in, we're happy to look at.
Okay, there's some suggestions here around targeted action for the HMRC, which again would need to be raised via your group. You could bring out the customs staff and the country would grind to a halt in a week. Pre-clearance tasks in customs work 24/7, 365 days a year. There are 2-hour time slots to have goods cleared for entry into the UK. It would cause chaos at the ports and be more effective than a one-day strike. And that's from Graham Crilly. So, some really good ideas there, Graham, and obviously make sure that you feed those in. Angela Pennington says, fantastic hearing loss awareness, fantastic subtitles, so good. I'm glad that that's effective. We always are really grateful to Richard because obviously he makes these events so much more accessible, but it's great to get some good feedback from that too, Angela, so thank you. The next one from Maureen Sweeney. Maureen, we will take this up with our digital team today. Colleagues are logging into PCS Digital and have been directed to a broken link from 2022 when trying to request a new ballot paper. That's something we're aware of. The link only went live today, but we're taking that up urgently and we'll make sure we get you an answer on that. Rebecca Howie says, can you confirm what happens if we have leave booked, but then we strike? Will it go down as leave or a strike? I've been told to ask PCS. That's from Rebecca Howie in the HMPO. So, Mark, I don't know if you can say anything on that one.
Yeah, this has come up. This comes up every time. If people have got leave booked, again, specific to your employer, go to your rep, but essentially people can declare that they're on strike and that the leave they can cancel and take it as a strike day. But obviously people also have the option if leave is booked to keep that going as leave, and the employer should honour that. People, though, different employers can, if you like, sometimes have a different emphasis. So wherever that member is from, if they send us their details or go to their rep, we can have a look if there's any employer-specific issue. But generally speaking, people should be able to cancel their leave to go on strike if they wish.
That's great. Thank you. Okay. Solidarity shout-outs from DWP Tyneside and Northumbria branch, Mark Byers, PCS Glasgow HMRC branch, ready to strike. Solidarity from DWP Glasgow branch, that's at Northgate, and Solidarity from Dundee Pension Centre. So thank you for all of those. Okay, another little batch of questions. So Sarah Williams asked, would it be worthwhile, you have to excuse my cough, would it be worthwhile targeting action in universal credit service centres? I think this would cause mass disruption to the government and will cause huge headlines in the press. We have obviously quite often come up with suggestions around the DWP and the universal credit service centres, but I'll ask Mark to feedback on that.
So on that one specifically, and also the colleague from Customs earlier on that you read out, the key thing to stress is that the way that we've approached this is that people working in each individual employer know best what might work or might not. And that's why, rather than the NEC decide where all this action is, we start from asking for submissions from each group. So in terms of universal credit centres, the start point for that should be our DWP elected reps looking at what is or isn't possible within the DWP. What I would say now is that what we're constantly weighing up is the effectiveness of action, but also against what action costs and how many members are involved. Obviously, we're raising a levy. What that doesn't allow for us is to call out tens of thousands of members on strike pay, because that will be unaffordable. But within the DWP, if there are areas where we have sort of groups of members that can have a real impact, we would want to consider it. So what I would suggest, what Sarah does is again to email into the DWP group office with a suggestion, and somebody from there will respond as to whether this is something we've already considered or not. And likewise, on the point about customs, I mean, obviously, again, that sounded a very attractive option. The HMRC group are currently considering targeted action options. And again, they'll be on this call. But if the person who made that suggestion, again, either emails in or puts that in the chat, we'll make sure that you get a reply as to whether or not that is feasible and can be built into our plans.
That's great. Thank you. Okay. Chris Barron, bit of a negative one, really, says 268 viewers tells a story in itself. No appetite or poor cascading of this event. Chris, what I can tell you is within 24 hours of this event being broadcast, the views will have gone up by tens of thousands. The people that actually physically are on the call now are the people that watch this back and that view it overall are massively different. So please don't be disheartened that we've only got several hundred on the call right now. What you'll find is very, very quickly that'll multiply. And just to let you know, this is also, as well as going to live streaming to Facebook, also goes to Twitter and to YouTube, and that tends to get a massive escalation. Okay, Darren Paul says how people are paid strike pay needs to be clearer. Even what pay slip to get the top up paid isn't clear. Very, very in short, Darren, the pay slip to provide to get the top up is the one that shows the deduction being made. But Mark, I don't know if there's anything additional you want to say on that. I mean, you know, I think overall the feedback we've had is that it's a very efficient system for claiming the strike pay that's been developed over this time. But if Chris has any specifics, then please feed them in. The thing you wanted to add to that, really? No. Okay, that's great. Okay, Carl Hornby, listening to the government's representative in attendance at the DFT today, who said it's unrealistic to expect pay rises in line with inflation, with the expectation for the rate of inflation to drop below 3% by the end of the year. What are the union's thoughts on that? I don't express mine in polite company. So that's from Carl. Any comment on that, Mark?
Yes, and I think it's a really important question, because food inflation last week was 18.6%. That's in the here and now, and members have had 2% in order to deal with that. So there's a crisis in the cost of living, which is why we're clear that our 10% pay claim submitted for 2022 was submitted to keep pace with inflation, and anything less than that is a cut in real terms. Now, people will obviously, and as the questioner said, the government is really hoping the inflation rate falls. Interestingly, the last published inflation figures went up against their expectations, went back up to 10.4%. We have done our own research, and I can confirm tonight that in every single month for the last year, inflation has been over 10% on the RPI and hovering around 10% on the CPI. That's why we're demanding money, and we are demanding it now, not just for 2022, but also moving forward in 2023. And I think that the thing to stress is that not only are we demanding that because it's right, if we look at what's happened elsewhere in the public sector, whilst none of those settlements in themselves are matching the current rate of inflation, what they've all done is significantly increase the government's offer. I have no doubt the government will have to increase what we've had. The question is how much are they going to do that? And are they going to make concessions on our redundancy cuts, pensions, overpayments, and job security? We are clear that we want money, and we want money now because there's a crisis now. And we're clear that anything less than inflation is a pay cut, both historically and moving forward. Can I just also remind people, because I know that sometimes people wonder, well, are we getting anywhere? And it's taking a long time. Just consider that it was only a month ago the government said they would not budge on health service pay because they'd had an independent pay review body recommendation. The government said they would not budge on teachers' pay because they had an individual pay review body recommendation. In both cases, they did. They have not bothered about the pay review body recommendations. They've gone back on what they've said, and in both cases, they've offered more than what they told us before was unaffordable. And I have no doubt they're going to have to do the same with us again. So whatever a minister is saying today in a DFT event, the reality is they know they're going to have to do better. The issue for us, I think, is whether that's a marginal improvement on the 2% they plan to give us again this year or a significant improvement. We'll only know when they get around the table, but what we all know is to get them around the table and make that the best offer possible, they need to feel pressure. And that is why I think it should be constantly repeated, Fran, and I think, therefore, every action we take needs to be at least as good as the last, if not better, because they monitor that really closely. The action of targeted action in April is huge, and that the members taking action are taking it on behalf of everyone, not just themselves, because the outcome needs to benefit everyone. And finally, the one thing the government could cling to, because I don't believe they think that they can ignore this pressure over months, is that we don't win the reballot and it all grinds to a halt. And again, if we do win the reballot, the pressure remains on them. So, I hope what people can read into that is progress is being made elsewhere. They're going to be talking to us. We've just got to keep as much pressure on them as we can. And the last thing to say, Fran, I was very pleased to hear the member who commented on the 28th and the bank holiday. Just to say the NEC had a long debate today about the action. And we've been monitoring very closely members' comments on Facebook Lives from group events. And the decision around the 28th did specifically marry up with a lot of membership comments at previous events as to how that isn't just popular, it actually is quite industrially quite a strong thing to do. And because of reduced staffing levels and because of expectations going into bank holiday periods. Also to confirm, we took on board what some members told us about the last two strikes were on Wednesdays, and therefore some part-time workers felt that it was the same day. So we're mixing it up to build more pressure on them. And I hope what people can see from that is that by constantly reviewing what we're doing, the idea is to keep that pressure on the government and to keep mixing up as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, solidarity from RPA Newcastle, that's from Fran Kelly, from DWP Dumfries and Galway branch, and from the Cabinet Office, targeted action in GDS is starting here next week, and that's from Joe Roberts. So thanks for all of those. Okay, Robbie Warburton asks, are HMPPS being reballoted? I'll ask you a couple together, Mark. Alison Smith comments, please avoid any non-consolidated pay offers should one be put forward. The ongoing implications to your pension will be lifelong, as I am now realising as I near retirement. So that's from Alison. And then Louise Smith says, we're all relying on each other here. Solidarity is so important. We can't crumble now. We have to keep telling this government we aren't going to accept being the lowest paid in the country. So thank you very much for that, Louise. Mark, do you know about the HMPPS being reballoted?
Sorry. No, so the full list of who's being reballoted is on the website. Yeah. In general, we're reballoting everyone we balloted originally, with the exception of those who've reballoted in recent weeks, like HMRC, the Valuation Office Agency, Welsh Government, because they have a 6-month mandate, so they're not included. And the ones that are not, the only other exclusion is where it was felt in the area that people didn't think that they were able to do enough work to get over the line. But the full list is available on the website itself, Fran. So that's and okay. If I can find out specifically on HMPPS in the next couple of minutes, I'll come back to that. On the non-consolidated point, can I just say on that we understand the problem with non-consolidated pay rise. And, I went to the British Museum picket line, and one of the things members told us loud and clear was, having had years of non-consolidated pay rises, it undermines their pensions. Yeah. We want consolidated pay rises that benefit their pensions and is moving forward. A feature of what the government has done in other sectors is they have made the lump sum non-consolidated. And obviously that's one of the things that we may well have to deal with if an offer like that comes our way. And again, we will consider that very carefully, but we want consolidated pay rises for everyone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, If a decent settlement is agreed by the Cabinet Office during April, how much advance notice will HMPO staff get prior to the targeted strike action ending? And that's from Rachel Berry. That's a bit hypothetical, but I don't know if there's anything you want to comment on that, Mark. I mean, we would have to react as it happened, I suppose. But
yeah, so I just missed the start of that point. Could you just repeat that?
If a decent settlement is agreed by the Cabinet Office during April, how much notice would HMPO staff get prior to the targeted strike action ending?
So let's be clear, in the event that happened, which would be good news, if we had an offer in April that we believe was acceptable, that would be good news, is the first thing to say. And obviously what we would immediately do is have to consider balloting members on that offer and whether or not that meant we were suspending any action that was taking place at that particular point. And we would consult closely with the areas responsible. But if anyone is worried about sort of people being out on strike and the employer thinks they're back to work, I just wanted to reassure people, whenever we've been in a situation like this before, we will make sure with individual employers as well as members that everybody knows what's going on and we consult as appropriate moving forward. So that's how we would handle that. So nobody to worry about NHM in the passport offices. And obviously, if the government even invite us to talks and we get a date, we will publicise that straight away so that everybody does know that something is happening, because we think it's important that people know if talks take place. And again, I think the NEC was clear today, Fran, if there's anything tangible to report, we will report that as quickly as we can by all available means, including having further Facebook Lives, briefings of reps and issuing written material to people.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, solidarity from CPS Wales branch. Let's strive for a strong yes vote in this new ballot. Solidarity from Home Office Midlands, that's Charlie Harris, and solidarity from HMRC East Midlands. So thank you for those. Quick update on HMPPS. I've had it confirmed that they are not being reballoted. So the Group President of the MOJ has just messaged me to say they are not included in the reballot. So I hope that helps. Okay, Mariana Owens says, I'm in HMRC, so we are not yet reballoting. How can we in the HMRC and in other areas that don't need to reballot yet help those that are reballoting to get over the 50% threshold? I'm sure we can find you lots of ways you can help us. Mark, anything you want to say there?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And it's great that it's come from HMRC, because I know that HMRC colleagues were very appreciative of the help that people who had got over the threshold first time round were offering in the HMRC reballot itself. So look, what we'll be urging people to do in this ballot period is obviously there will be leafleting taking place outside workplaces. We will be doing call hub operations. We will be wanting to give support to those people in shared buildings, for example. So, you know, wherever people are, I think the first thing people can do is, if you're certainly if you're in a shared site, or if you're in a town or a city that you know somebody else is balloting and you've got time, contact the local reps there to see if there's anything that you can help with, any initiatives that they have. And certainly when PCS puts the call out for any assistance that we need, whether this is sort of phone banking, peer-to-peer texting or anything else, then volunteer. But what the question gets to the heart of is, it may well be, as we've heard tonight, that we may move to targeted action in HMRC. And the whole approach of our campaign is we're all supporting each other. So where we've got some on strike, we want to go to their picket lines. We want to give them solidarity. Where people are reballoting, any practical help we can. And when we're all out together, we make as much an effort as we can to have marches, rallies and picket lines. And so far, Fran, it has been an incredible success. I think we shouldn't lose sight of in meetings like this. The new people coming forward, the young members who are speaking at strike rallies and are on picket lines, people for the first time picketing. It really has been incredible to see. And the NEC received a detailed report today of how well the 15th of March went. And that's the spirit we want to keep going now throughout April to get us to where we want to be.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, two conflicting views here. Claire Clark says it's a fabulous idea to do it before the bank holiday. But James Lawson says, I worry near to the bank holiday that people will just see dollar signs and do as much overtime as they can. So clearly, there's lots of good reasons for picking the 28th of April, but that is a good point. It would be undermined, wouldn't it, if people just work additional overtime to compensate? So that's worth remembering. Claire Wood says, why is it okay for agency staff from UKVI to complete passport applications with 4 days training? And I think that's an indication of the panic measures that the employer are adopting, given the announcements around the HMPO strikes. Mark, anything you want to say there?
No, but again, if was it Claire? I think he said who raised that point.
Yeah, Claire Woods. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know whether Claire has done that, but if she hasn't, if she could draw that to the attention of our Home Office and Passport Office reps to just check whether this is something that we're aware of and we've approached the employer. But I think you're right. We know when the Border Force members were on strike over Christmas, for example, we know they brought the army in who weren't properly trained in order to try and shore up a service. And then afterwards, they had to concede that they hadn't given anything like the normal service. They're clearly going to try whatever they can. If there are 1,900 members, though, in scope and 1,500 and rising are in the union, there's absolutely no way that they're going to be able to cover what our members would have done and probably make lots of mistakes. So we will make the point about fully trained staff. And if Claire does point that, hopefully our Home Office people are picking this up now. If there's anything we need to raise with management, we will do so.
Okay, thank you. Lots and lots of solidarity here from DWP Beds and Hearts. If there are any members from that branch on here, please let James Miller know so that you can mark off that you've posted your ballot paper. Solidarity from the Defence Sector Group, hoping to join colleagues taking action once we have joined you with a mandate. That's from Chris Dando. Solidarity from Bristol, please support the ongoing action. We need to stand up to this government. That's from Tracy Williams. Can we request PCS merchandise for members, i.e. car stickers and posters to help advertise the union, especially when we're not in a work environment? Rachel Berry. And Rachel, that's a really good idea. And we're constantly looking at PCS merchandise and posters, etc. So I'll make sure that that's fed in. Louise Quinn asks, is Northern Ireland included in the latest ballot? And the answer regarding Northern Ireland is no. They're either in the HMRC, so they're already covered by the mandate, or are covered by the ballots that are running separately that closed on the 17th of March. So hopefully, Louise, that helps with that question. If number 10 haven't given Cabinet Office permission to open negotiations with us, can we tell the media that they are effectively blocking our negotiations? That's from Mark Dollar, the National Highways Chair. So, Mark, I don't know if there's anything you want to comment there.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Mark. And the answer is we have done, and the media have picked up quite a lot on how the government are not having talks with their own workforce. The government are putting out a pretty bland statement that is close to lying. I mean, the Home Office response to the Passport Office strike notice, I think, was a lie, because they claimed that there are meaningful talks taking place, and that's not happening. To be clear, I think my understanding of the situation is it's less they are blocking, more that they have to have explicit authority. And what we can't work out is that because they're trying to get the other sectors done and dusted. But we understand that they are certainly being asked to give authority to open talks with us. But in the press release that we've done tonight, Fran, just for Mark's benefit, just to reiterate that our entire message is we are escalating the action to force the government to talk to its own workforce, and we won't stop till they do. And that'll be a constant theme. And what people hopefully will pass back to their members is one of the things we've, I think, scored a lot on, is making the point that the government's treated its own workforce worse than everyone else. We had the lowest pay offer. We're having more cuts than anyone else. And of course, they are now, whether inadvertently or deliberately, exacerbating that by being the last lot of people they're getting into talks with. So we are definitely going to push this. And if there's any members that people know are undecided or unpersuaded, I think we've got a very, very easy message to make, which is, if health workers went on strike and got a better offer, teachers went on strike and got a better offer, we've been on strike and they haven't talked to us yet, it's important we keep the pressure on, otherwise they'll try to leave us behind. And I think that's got to be the key message to vote in the ballot.
Yeah, thank you. And Bev Hopper makes a similar point, actually. She says, unlike other groups who seem to have meaningful talks, the government haven't even got around the table with us yet. Can't help worry they're holding out for the outcome of the next ballot, because if we don't make the threshold, they'll think they don't need to bother. And that's the exact point, isn't it, Bev? It's really, really important that we don't just beat the threshold this time around, but that we smash it. Okay, Suzanne Guest asks, will HMPO still pay us for the bank holidays, Mark? Oh, that's it.
So that's a question rather than me take a stab at it. That's something that we need to get somebody from the Home Office group to answer, I think. Just for everybody to know, in general, if there's a strike over a bank holiday and it takes place the day before, it does not affect people's pay for the bank holiday period where there's a one-day strike. If there is a strike that is both sides of the bank holiday, then employers can deduct for the entire period. The national strike is a one-day strike, and therefore will not affect people paying. Anyone who's on targeted action that transcends that period, of course, the union will reimburse any loss, so nobody would lose out.
I think that's actually the answer, Mark, so thank you. Okay, Thomas Joseph asks, instead of £3 a month, what about £5 a month levy so we can take more members out? It's an idea. But clearly, we set the levy at a very modest rate for a reason, so that people will be able to manage that. But Mark, I don't know if there's anything you want to comment there.
So I'm really grateful for that suggestion. Obviously, the £3 levy rate is for people earning less than 24,000. For people over 24,000, it's £5. What we've also said is anyone who feels that they can pay more obviously can do so voluntarily. We were very conscious when we set the levy rates. The more you get in, the more strike action you can fund. But given the poverty pay that members are on, we were also very conscious that people, are really struggling. And some people told us that they're paying the £3, but that was a push. So we've tried to balance it to make it meaningful. And I can tell you that, we in February raised over £600,000 from the levy. All of that is now paying for the strike action taking place in April. So at the minute, the plan is not to increase it or decrease it, to keep it at that rate. But I would stress, if anybody really does feel that they want to give more, and people can voluntarily increase that if they wish. So that's where we are. Also, Fran, just to say that all the action we've taken, obviously, we've worked out that we've got the money to pay for it. The union has put in some millions centrally. We're raising money from the levy. We will keep that constantly under review if this action has not been successful in getting the government around the negotiating table, but obviously we hope that it will.
Okay, thank you. I'm conscious of the time, so we are running out of time. But Terry Cullinan, I think I can probably respond to you, because I'm guessing we're talking about the DWP here. We're fighting for what is fair as a union. Why is one department still not getting the correct holiday pay? Does PCS accept the ongoing underpayment? And will you finally demand your members stop being underpaid? If it is the DWP you're referring to, as part of those negotiations, I can confirm that an announcement is imminent. It's not, as you can imagine, the DWP have not handled this well and have not handled this promptly. But we are determined to make sure that everything is resolved in terms of the holiday pay issue, which I know is a massive concern for members in the DWP. Okay, solidarity messages from DWP Lincolnshire and Rutland, from DWP Glasgow, from Home Office Midlands, that's from Terry Regan, and from Preston, and that's from Nicola Leeming. So we are, as I say, running out of time. I think that there's lots of questions we haven't yet come to, including Alan Clitheroe, but I think that has been covered. Are we also pushing to get the court ruling on pensions accepted and refunded? And I think Mark covered in his presentation that we are now seriously considering a legal challenge against what the courts decided, or an appeal rather, against what the court decided on the 31st of January. there are people saying they're still awaiting their ballot papers. So obviously, if those don't arrive, it is now the system is now in place for you to order a duplicate. Jeff Thurman says a rumor was doing the rounds last Friday that it was a possibility, and we had this confirmed this morning. If you take part in more than 12 days of action, then we will start having days taken off us. I'm looking at having 2 days taken off me. It's worrying that this will happen. I'm not quite sure where you work, Jeff, or where that rumour originated from, but it's certainly not something we're aware of. Probably in the first instance, raise it via your branch and your group. But Mark, I don't know if it's something you've heard or picked up.
No, and I'm assuming that's referring to annual leave. Is what I read into the question. And again, obviously, that must imply that this is an area where there's some longer-term industrial action taking targeted action. So it is best to direct that to our people in the area to see if that's something we're aware of and have raised with the management.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I think we've covered most of the questions. If there's anything you've raised that hasn't been covered, do get in touch with us either directly or via your branch or your group, and we'll make sure that we get you answers. Mark, is there anything you would like to say in summing up?
Well, no, it's been a great event, and I just want to reiterate to the person earlier on who was worried about how many people were on, that, as I say, these things are streamed out and the views always climb into the thousands and tens of thousands. But it is important that everyone who has been on tonight does cascade this back tomorrow. There's bound to be lots of questions. And all I would say, really, I think, to sum up, is we're in a better place than we've ever been in terms of the pressure we've built. This reballot could be the key to showing them that the pressure is going to stay on. And therefore, you cannot overstate the importance of everybody voting, taking nothing for granted, because that's the way to show everybody's employer and the Cabinet Office that we're here for the long haul. But obviously, whilst this ballot is running, we're going to have huge strikes in April, where we've got members out for all of April in some cases, and we're going to have everybody out in an all-out strike on the 28th. Now, today is the 27th of March. That all-out strike is the 28th of April, and April is a month with lots of action. So the ball is in the court of the Cabinet Office and the government. And I just want to reassure people that we don't let any day pass without pressing them, pushing them. It may well be we get these talks in the course of the next few days and weeks during April. And I hope we do, because we want to be in the same position as the health unions and the education unions, which is have an offer that we can consider and consult people on. But unless and until that happens, the way to force their hand is to support all the action we call, keep building the union, paying the levy, support the action on the 28th, and return your ballot paper and urge everybody else to do the same. If we do that, I think we can be more confident than we have ever been before that we're going to get better off the government. Whether it's enough remains to be seen, but we're going to get better than we would have got. So let's stick together. Let's everyone who's taken action on our behalf up to now, let that not go in vain. Let's keep the targeted action going, and a big shout out to everyone on strike this week and the next few weeks. And let's make sure that the next time we meet, it's either to discuss an update or it is because that we have got to prepare for further action or we've got a ballot result to announce. So stay strong, let's keep together. And I am absolutely convinced that we are going to achieve something from this campaign. Let's not let them off the hook now. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks so much, Mark. And that's probably a good note for us to end on. Just to echo Mark's closing remarks, really, we know what we've got to do, don't we? And what we do over the next few weeks determines what happens next. So let's make sure we do everything possible to not just make sure we return our own ballot paper, but that we encourage all our colleagues and the people we're in contact with to return theirs as well. And if we can do that and we can repeat the beating of the threshold, that's got to put us in the strongest possible position. Huge thank you to our interpreter, to Richard, who, as always, has done a great job in making the event accessible. Big thank you to Mark, because I know I've been firing questions at you left, right and centre, and thanks for dealing with all of those. And thank you to all of you for joining. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch with us and speak to you all very soon. Take care.
Thank you.